And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba and the Bloom, episode 87. Going to continue our review of the starting pitching position from the 2023 fantasy baseball season. ADPs 31 through 60 and their finishing positions as always. Be fun to kind of decipher where we're at here. Thanks to the fans that have been waiting patiently before we started the show. Nick Pollock, appreciate you. You can find me on Twitter at BDintric, podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod, and my co-host, as always, on Twitter at RyanBHQ. Ryan Bloomfield, how we doing, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, we can see we're here for the listeners, and if they want us to get this show on the road and start it, we'll do it. So, Nick, the early start time is just for you, my friend. Happy to have you on the show, as well as I have received a few other complaints that we don't start early enough, but we just like to talk to each other we get on at 8:30 and we just chat, and then usually once it hit 9, we're like, all right,
and we better do this type thing.
We better actually start.
And on the bright side is we were planning future shows for the listeners, so I think it'll be pretty cool.
It was actually all business.
Yeah,
it was all business. We are, I guess, we'll segue like show business next week. Well, tonight is part 2 of starting pitchers and the breakouts. Tuesday night we'll do relievers. Next Thursday we'll do our gladiator. And the week after that is what Bubba and I were discussing. We did this last year, but some baseball forecaster interviews with folks that did either research essays or player boxes or prospects. We've got 4 guests lined up next week, or 2 weeks.
2 weeks
to nail that out. So that is why we were chit chatting.
But I appreciate the enthusiasm always. It means a lot to us. So. Yeah. It is much appreciated. We're going to review the second round of starting pitchers. The first round we kind of thought was interesting, to say the least. You had some notes on that, first 15 versus second 15, kind of pockets of ADP to look at. We'll obviously kind of dive into this and some long shots, but anything else, like the hot stove's going crazy. Shohei's apparently going to be a giant, but I'm not holding my breath. Anything else you'd like to discuss before we start talking second part to starting pitchers?
No, but I do have to blame Nick. I have not posted my board. I have not transferred my board from my phone, which is upstairs charging, to my computer so I can show it on the screen. All flustered because of you, Nick. Thank you.
Well, we will get her done.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, he's a genius with the setup here. But we talked about it last time in the top 15 versus second 15, and you had a tweet go out earlier to kind of promote the show about the next round of 31 through 60 here. And while you're looking for the board, I'll kind of let the listeners know.
I'll be back in like 2 minutes because I got something else up my sleeve.
Okay, what this showcased. So as I mentioned before, the top 1 through 15, 16 through 30, a lot of similarities in ERAs and ratios and all that good stuff. So it depended on where you hit your bubbles in ADP, like we talked about. Well, Ryan tweeted out earlier on Thursday, top 31 through 45 starting pitchers by ADP, 4.13 ERA, 1.23 WHIP, 9.9 K per 9, and 1,943 innings. Okay. ADP 46 through 60, 3.88 ERA, better ERA, 1.29 WHIP, pretty close to the same WHIP, 9.29 K per 9, and 2,037 innings. So about almost 100 more innings. Again, very close similarities between the two. And as we break down the top next 30 picks, you'll see the pockets we've been talking about. So as Ryan has returned to us here, he says he has something up his sleeve, and I can't wait to hear what this is all about.
Did you talk successfully for a minute and a half?
I can talk all day. I do solo shows by myself, so we're good.
All right. So I did go ahead, and I believe this is what you were talking about when I was gone.
Bingo. There it is.
I took what I brought up last week and put that all in a special board, I guess, and then I added some more ADP ranks. So for folks on the YouTube or on the live stream, you can see this. I'll kind of explain in podcast form. But I mentioned last week how the first 15 and the next 15 off the board entering 2023 were pretty similar. I went ahead and did that same analysis from 31 to 45. So that group of pitchers, which we'll talk about tonight, kind of that third 15. And the reason I'm doing 15s, and really it's the format of the show, but it's also like if you're in a 15-team league, this is your SP1, then your SP2, then SP3, 4, 5, down all the way down. So The fourth bucket from 46 to 60, you can see there. And then the fifth and sixth, I added the fifth and sixth, even though we won't have a show about those guys from ADP 60 to 90. We'll touch on a few of the breakouts tonight. So what we can see is like the ERA, WHIP, and strikeouts per nine from each of those kind of SP1, SP2, SP3 tiers. And we talked about, last week that the first two tiers were pretty similar. What we see tonight is actually a better ERA from the SP4 tier versus SP3. Had a 3.88 ERA. The starting pitchers from 46 to 60 off the board, while the pitchers from 31 to 45 had a 4.13 ERA. So that was interesting. Another interesting takeaway, and Bubba, you're kind of looking at this for the first time, so I'm interested in your thoughts too. Like the SP4 and 5 from 61 to 75 and 76 to 90, it did start to fall off a cliff. Like those pitchers really did suck. Like your ERA for that group combined was like 4.45, and every other group was below 3, except for the 31 to 45 group, which was just above 4. So the WHIP was really bad. The strikeouts were down. So it did. I mean, if I'm looking at this as a takeaway and I want to get pitching early, like it did kind of fall as a group, fall off a cliff once you start to get down to your like SP 60 through 90, your SP 4 or 5 and 15 team leagues. It did start to kind of collapse.
And for just like reference sake for the listeners, SP60 still has an ADP of 217, so it's just outside the top 200. So as you're
drafting these guys,
as you're navigating a draft board, your top 60 pitchers off the board are basically in the top 215 picks. So kind of if you're in a 12-team league or you're in a that's 240s around 20, so you're getting around 18, 19, 12-team league. You probably are feeling okay about your pitching for the most part before you get into the deeper rounds. 15-team league, like Ryan said, it's a little different because in theory, it's like your pockets of SP1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Unless you're aggressive on pitching early, or things we talked about last week that stood out a lot is we brought it back to our hitting reviews where like all the top hitters at each position like flourished, like they're great, and then you saw different pockets of good and bad. Where pitching, you can kind of navigate if you can navigate, because there's a lot of like what if questions. Did you take A or B? Big differences in your team's production, and it still allowed you though if you didn't want to take an ADP 1 through 15 pitcher, you could have went heavy like in the 16 to 30 or 16 to 45 even, and kind of been okay and take hitting early. But what Ryan's chart right here is showing, by the 60th pitcher, by pick 215 or so, you better have a pretty confident staff is what it's coming down to, or be prepared to play the streaming game, which Nick Pollock and company are very good at. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Like, maybe your later round pitchers, which we're not going to cover all of them per se, and there are good ones. We will hit some of them that were great. There's, the 25th and 26th pitchers are post pick 300 in drafts. You can find them, but there's only 2 of them past pick 300. So you got to kind of figure out how all that plays out. It is an interesting chart because it's like comfortable. Yeah, okay. Then it's like red wine. It's the red wedding from Game of Thrones, if you've seen this. So it's
I don't get that reference, but
and there's it's amazing we're still friends. But it does stand out like a sore thumb because we can look at these charts of hitters and pitchers we've seen each episode, and there's like some good reds and greens throughout the chart, where this is just very blatant, like boom. It stands out like a sore thumb on what you kind of want to avoid. And it's another question, maybe when we look at relief pitching on Tuesday, there's where you can take your relievers instead of your starters per se. Get like a good like reliever 1. In the later rounds, maybe take your relief pitching darts instead of your starting pitching darts. Things along those lines. It's all roster construction. I know it's probably annoying to hear that over and over again, but in the end, it's all about roster construction. And that's why these reviews are good. That's why when we do our ADP 1 through 150 episodes, 150 to 200, which we really enjoyed last year, and the listeners apparently did as well, those helped us out a ton to get going. And so those are kind of different angles we can look at as well.
You got it, man. And yeah, it's interesting. Like, I mean, so you still have to, and I'm glad you kind of mentioned at the end, Bubba, is like, you can't look at this chart and say, oh, starting pitchers 60 through 90 all sucked, or not all of them, but as a group are really bad. you still have to take pitchers there unless, you have some type of plan where you're going to take hitters and not do starting pitchers for rounds and rounds and rounds. So, again, like this, to simply boil it down, it's picking the right players beats any kind of strategy, but it's just interesting to see the fallout. So,
yep. Massive fallout. Right. So let's get to it. Let's talk ADPs 31 through 60 pitchers. And we'll start with the newest New York Met. He was the Yankees' problem last year. Now he's the Mets' problem this year. That is one Luis Severino. And that's where this is one of those. We'll get to some picks right after him. He had an ADP of 111, 31st pitcher off the board, finished 225, 6.65 ERA, 1.65 whip, 79 strikeouts. Injuries and whatnot throughout the season derailed a lot of spots of the season. He wasn't trustworthy at all. You stack against him in DFS. It was a rough season. So any thoughts on Severino? And besides the fact that he just hasn't pitched innings at all since like 2018.
Yeah, 190 innings the last two seasons combined, just 89 innings. In 2023, the I don't know, I guess everything was bad for Severino last year. Strikeouts pretty much fell off. 11% strikeout minus walk. The whiffs disappeared down to 9%. Like, I don't really see fastball velocity held firm, and there wasn't too much of a change in pitch mix. Threw a few more cutters, but like it didn't really matter. At the end of the day, on the surface, you've got a 19% strikeout rate, 11% strikeout minus walk. Probably didn't deserve to have a 6.65 ERA, but like 5+ probably deserved. And so I don't know. I mean, he's on the Mets now. I don't know if that helps or not.
I don't plan on it. I don't plan on it helping. No. Yeah. The Mets' big move so far. Let's get Joey Wendell and Luis Severino. Yes, how the off seasons have changed in New York. Let's talk about now one of the two pitchers that go back to back after Severino that could have been big difference makers between the two. First one's Logan Gilbert. He was the ADP of 111 as well. 32nd pitcher, finished 14th at the position, 3.73 ERA, 108 whip, which is great considering his teammate George Kirby was a whip machine also, and Gilbert wasn't as known for that. Developed a very quality whip at 108, 189 Ks. That was big as well. One of the big takeaways for me, it's back-to-back seasons of 185 or more innings, which is great to see. That was his age 26 season this past year. So definitely made some gains. ERA was a little higher. Home runs were a little more volatile this past year, but still as a young pitcher to see him kind of, to me, duplicate previous success, if not get a little better in some regions, I think that was a big step forward.
Yeah, and Gilbert, I mean, we talked a little bit last show about like the perceived safety and volume. Gilbert, a lot of his value hinges on innings, and he's delivered innings each of the last two seasons, 185 in 2022, 190 in 2023. It was interesting from a pitch mix standpoint. Went from 54% four seamers down to 42% in 2023. So went to a slider more often, a little bit more curves. That's probably why we saw the uptick in swinging strikes from Gilbert and ultimately his strikeout rate. So I like that change. I like pretty much Seattle as a whole. They seem to know what they're doing from a organization standpoint with starting pitchers. And I'm not sure how much that's talked about, like Houston and Los Angeles and even the Twins this year kind of get the pub for that. Seattle kind of knows what they're doing with these guys. And so that plays into, we talked about George Kirby adding a splitter midseason last year, like things like that, where Gilbert could take an extra step. So great year for Gilbert. I'm not sure what I did actually pull up 2024 ADP. You're gonna have to pay for him. Yeah, it's right around like 70. So it's jumped from 111 last year.
Yep, it's a jump and probably deserved, I guess, with the age and improvements. And if you think he keeps improving, the next step's going to be pretty darn good. So those are good things. Nick Pollock in the chat does not believe the Mets will fix Sevy's secondaries. So he's out on Severino as well. Surprise, surprise. The next pitcher off the board, though, at ADP of 114, the 33rd starting pitcher, finished third at the position. He won the National League Cy Young Award. That is one Blake Snell, 2.25 ERA, 1.19 whip, 234 strikeouts. Ryan, did you know if he pitches at least 180 innings in a season, he wins a Cy Young? So that's pretty impressive stuff from Blake Snell. But all in all, a great season. He was an expert at being able to pitch around guys, afford walks, but because I guess the way I'm trying to say it, he pitched around them well enough that the walks didn't hurt him, if that made sense. Like he's very, very crafty in that regard. So heck of a season for Blake Snell.
And I think the walks, and so there will be a lot of attention paid to the admittedly terrible walk rate for Blake Snell. But I think a lot of that was by design with Snell.
That's kind of what I was trying to say.
Yeah, his stuff was just so good. So he had, and I love these type of like stats. He had 3 secondary pitches, Snell, that had over a 22% swinging strike rate, which is just crazy. Curveball, changeup, and slider, threw them all over 10% of the time. So he's got a pretty like varied pitch mix, and he can just kind of do what he wants with those secondaries. And he did not give in. He figured I'm gonna throw my secondaries. If I walk a guy, and I'll just get the next guy out. And that led to a Cy Young. Sure, there was I do think a little bit of luck involved. Is he going to repeat this? No. But yeah, hell of a year. The other thing I'll bring up about Blake Snell, he'll probably be an example of this in April 2024. Blake Snell in 4 starts this past April had as many strikeouts as walks, and had like I think 5+ ERA in April, and ultimately went on to win the Cy Young. So exhibit 2,168 of not overreacting to April. It's a long season.
Yeah, he's a great poster child for that. It'll be interesting to see where he signs this year. He picked a great time to get a Cy Young award. So
yeah, he'll get paid.
We'll see how this pans out, because like I made the joke is 180 innings pitched. He's done it twice. The 2 times he's won a Cy Young. Other than that, innings pitched are kind of a bugaboo for Blake Snell. So it'll be a very interesting situation to see where he lands and can he keep that consistency. Because I agree, obviously he's probably not the right word, but I want to say obviously is not going to duplicate what just took place. But could he be a low 3 ERA guy? Be pretty effective. I think so. I really do, especially with the strikeout upside he brings. That's the K's game changer.
The K's are huge. Like, can he repeat 234 strikeouts? Probably. I mean, 180 innings left to get to again, but like that's such an advantage. And just looking at this board, there were a few other 200 strikeout guys in this group, but really no one outside of Snell and Pablo Lopez really touched 230. And that's such an advantage in these more middle rounds.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, everybody loves Aaron Nola. Why can't Blake Snell be like Aaron Nola? Like, there's a lot of similarities there. Like, the ratios could get to you from time to time, but the strikeouts will be there. I think there's, to me at least, a big. Yeah. Maybe I'm overthinking. I know you're a hardcore Team Nola guy, but
the volume isn't there for, like, the track record of volume for Snell has not been there. I'd like to see him get 180 repeatedly, and he hasn't been able to do so. But
yeah, I wanted to pull this up real quick. So strikeouts wise, you mentioned Snell at 234, third most in baseball, tied with Pablo Lopez. Yeah, there's only 4 guys at 230 or more, only 6 guys at 220 or more. So yeah. It's rarefied air in this era of baseball, and that's game changing stuff, as we've mentioned. The next pitcher off the board was Nestor Cortez, 34th ADP, finished 120th at the position. Obviously, a major injury riddled season. Did 63 total innings pitched. I kind of wash it away due to injuries, but maybe there's more to it that I'm missing.
You kind of wash it away. He only threw 11 starts in April and May, and eventually just got shut down. So I guess he came back in August for 4 innings. So I don't know. It just sucks to see, like, he was one of the more fun pitchers to watch, even though he was a Yankee. I just love watching him just from deception and timing standpoint. But yeah, I am very concerned on his outlook for 2024, given that he ended the season hurt and it was shoulder. So it's tough.
That is the tough part. Like, I stared at him in some early drafts going, should I? Maybe, no. And I usually end up passing. So that's kind of where we're at. Because I love Nasty Nestor. When he's on, he was very, very good a couple years ago. The next pitcher is the poster child for taking quality over quantity theory, and that is Clayton Kershaw. 35 years old this past year. He was the 35th pitcher off the board, and he finished 15th at the position. I saw 15th and had to double take, because you think about the dude only threw 131 innings. He's thrown 121, 126, 131 the last 3 seasons. And he continues to finish high up because the ratios are elite. He had a 2.46 ERA this past season to go with a 106 whip and 137 Ks in those innings, so better than a K per inning, which he's continued to do even in the limited innings runs. And the ratios, like I said, have been outstanding. Obviously, a massive injury that leaves big questions for 2024. But once again, if you took the chance on a Kershaw, the ADP 123, he paid off for you in a big way. It just depends, I guess, on how you replaced him. Did you crush yourself with replacements, basically?
Yeah, and in this day and age of lower innings pitch totals from starting pitchers, Kershaw's innings the last 3 years, 122, 126, 132. Like, that sounds bad, but that's not really that far off from like 160 inning starter. That's only a few starts lower. And then you get obviously the elite ratios that Kershaw has just consistently posted throughout his career. Two interesting things with Kershaw. First half, Kershaw was like among the strikeout leaders in all of baseball, which was just mind blowing to me. Very concerned how he finished though. Like in the second half, he had a 2.23 ERA, a 110 whip, but the whiffs disappeared. The fastball velocity was down 2 ticks. The expected ERA from HQ was up over 4. You tack on, it was injury related. It's more shoulder stuff, but Kershaw's going to be 36 like next year. Like, I don't know, common theme. I always worry about how these guys finish, and Kershaw went out with a whimper. So could he do what he's been doing each of the last 3 seasons and post a 1 whip with like a 2.50 ERA over 125 innings? Absolutely. Like, I'm not counting Kershaw out from that at all. I just wonder the way he finished with the age and injury. Like, the chances of that to me seem slimmer than they've ever been.
Yeah, that final time we saw Kershaw in the postseason did not look like the Kershaw we know. That was batting practice. That was brutal. Nick brings up a great point in the chat. He had 13 wins in those starts as well.
Yeah.
Like, that is bonkers stuff there. That Dodgers 101, but that just shows how good Clayton Kershaw was. And I kind of want to say one more thing, and it kind of was my point of quality over quantity. And you did mention the injury concern there, but it's why I look at guys like Scherzer and Verlander. Do we want to look at quality over quantity stuff? Because I think we all agree they're not the innings guys they used to be. But at the same time, like, Verlander's like a 110 ADP, Scherzer's like a 125 ADP. Last year, Kershaw was a 123 ADP. So it really makes you kind of, is the juice worth the squeeze question? Because it's like you said, it's not like the old days. 125, 130 is still pretty darn good. If these guys give you the quality they're good at, the injury concerns are still there as well. But it's just, it's you can't just write them off, is what I'm trying to say, anymore, like you used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only like, I don't know, and this is probably just a personal bias I need to get past. I just think there's risk of like 40 innings from Kershaw or even Scherzer. Like, there's that floor. But then again, I mean, there's that floor with any starting pitcher. So I don't know. That's a really good point. Like, I should probably be more open to guys who we think have a lower inning ceiling, even like 130, 140, that post these types of ratios, because it's really damn hard to do.
Yep. Nick Lodolo, shame of an injury-riddled season. That's the best way I can put it. 36 pitcher, finished 194, 69 ERA, 175 whip, 47 Ks. He had the foot ankle-ish injury, shin injury. It was like a weird dynamic he had going on there. Missed a ton of time. And when he was out there, Great American ate him up. So it was just a bad all-around season for Lodolo.
And not only like ate him up, like freaking devoured him. 27% homer to fly. Like, that is terrible, terrible home run luck. You expect the homer to fly to be bad because of the ballpark, but 27% is just absurd. A 435 BABIP is absurd as well. Like, the skills for Nick Lodolo were better in 2023 than they were in his quote unquote breakout of 2022. And like, this isn't 10 years ago. Like, Lodolo's not going to fly under the radar anymore. And there's still maybe some health concerns we'll monitor over the offseason. But like, this is the ultimate, like, trust the skills, not the results. I think Nick Lodolo, he's like one of my favorite buys for next year. I just think he's the same guy that we saw entering 2023, if not better.
ADP of 244. So you get a little
That's
discount
cheap.
there as well.
That's cheaper than I thought, man. Damn.
Yep, people are worried
In a
to say the
DC
least.
here.
Yeah, hey, come on down, friend. The 37th pitcher with an ADP of 133 finished 82nd at the position. God, it still hurts.
Do
to
we
see
have to do this guy?
I know this hurts just because we're a man of the people. We have to do it. Lance Lynn, 5.73 ERA, 1.39 WHIP, but 191 strikeouts. Ryan, he had strikeouts, all the strikeouts. I think we said that so many times this season. Like the strikeouts are here, the strikeouts are there. It's coming. And in his first couple starts with the Dodgers, it was there. And then it wasn't again. And it was just a bad season going to St. Louis now. But 2023, I'm just kind of trying to forget.
So this was my Trevor Rogers of 2020.
I was with you on this one. I can't leave you alone there.
It's hard to have good pitching stats when you get a 5.73 ERA, a 1.39 WHIP. Over how many innings did he throw? A ton.
Too many.
That's
183. 183.
Like that destroys that. Yeah. Those extra 2/3 are probably
like 7 home runs.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just destroys your pitching categories. And like I say that Trevor Rogers this 2022 Trevor Rogers was my 23 Lance Lynn. I'd love to have a year where I don't have like one of these guys that just totally it only takes one to like totally anyone who had Alek Manoah last year can say as well, but just need to avoid these guys who post bad ratios but also do so in bunches. The 191 Ks offer a little solace.
Yeah, little Sauls. At least he didn't take Kyle Wright. He was a 38th pitcher, finished 219, all the injuries.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. He didn't hurt your team. I mean, he only threw 30 innings. Like, I'd rather have drafted Kyle Wright than Lance Lynn, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Even though he finished 219.
Well, let's get to a pocket of pitchers that was a little more entertaining now. Joe Ryan, ADP of 139. He was a 39th pitcher off the board, finished 36th at the position, and would have finished higher if it wasn't for an ERA issue that he had a 4.51 ERA, 1.17 WHIP, and 197 Ks. It's been well documented. The boy gives up the long ball, and that happened this past season. Big jump. Career high home run to fly ball, if you want to go that direction. But very effective stuff as a whole. Like we saw signs of being like the next ace type pitcher. And then other times where, like I said, the long ball was very prevalent in his game. So what's your thoughts on Joe Ryan?
Still, I think a really nice step forward for Joe Ryan. Yeah, the second half, like it definitely fell apart, 6 ERA over second half. But like even the second half skills were just fine. Even better, perhaps. Like 15% swing strike in the second half. Joe Ryan was part of that. I mentioned the like organization philosophies and that sort of thing with Minnesota. He's still very fastball heavy through almost 60% four-seamers, but picked up a split finger this year, threw it almost a third of or just over a quarter of the time. Split finger at a 12% swing strike, and then a sweeper as his third pitch was effective too. So like, I think Joe Ryan, the homers will always be there just because it's like a 50% fly ball rate. If you allow that many fly balls, it's going to hurt you. But look at whip and strikeouts.
Yep. Like
whip and strikeouts were excellent. And I think that's, that we tend to look at ERA and focus so much at ERA just naturally. But I think the floor on the whip and strikeouts for Joe Ryan is actually pretty high. And then you just kind of hope for some fortunate home run luck with those fly balls. Because fly ball pitchers can be very effective. I mean, it's not a home run, it's an out pretty much. Yep. And so if Joe Ryan ever ran into a decent year of home run luck, we're looking at a major step forward, I think.
Yeah, I think Nick Pollock is a Joe Ryan fan. He says he's destined to find the number 2 pitch this offseason. No way he doesn't learn one in drive line, and his four-seamer is elite. So yeah, if he finds a good number 2, it could be that step forward in the right direction. So
yeah, 17% swinging strike on a four-seamer. Like that is unheard of. That's a really good point, Nick.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Joe's in early drafts. Let's put it that way. Well, we had to talk about Lance Lynn, so it's only fair we get to talk about the next guy. He had an ADP of 141, which was by far too low. 40th pitcher off the board, finished 20th at the position. That is one Frederick. I am the ace of the Brewers, Peralta. 3.86 ERA, 1.12 WHIP, 210 punchies. That's pretty good as well. And this is one of those, like we kind of talked about it on the last episode, Ryan, is we look at innings and growths and everything. 144 and 21, 78 and an injury riddled 22, back to 165 in 2023. Yeah. And he was just pure filth on that mound. There was, especially the second half, this is just like the full season numbers. If you guys remember the Bloom Board second half numbers and just tweets that were going out from Ryan and other guys, like Freddy Peralta was lighting K to walk percentages on fire. He was doing everything you could think of to be elite in the second half. And it makes me very excited for 2024 because this is the guy I think we've all been hoping for so long. And the development of an extra pitch has helped him in a big way.
Yeah, he's still fastball Freddy. Like I mean, that is his game, but a few more changeups, a few more sliders certainly helped. Yes, biggest rise in strikeout minus walk from first half to second half of any pitcher in the majors. That was our Bloom Board. Out at First Pitch Arizona, and a somewhat broken record, but not only finished the year healthy, but finished the year just elite, and that means a lot to me heading into 2024. This is also like a Pablo Lopez situation. So I'm looking through Freddy Peralta's injury log. 2019 IL shoulder, 2021 inflammation IL shoulder, 2022 90 days on the IL sprained lat shoulder, 2023 this is what we got. Like, how the hell could you have predicted 166 innings, 30 starts from Freddy Peralta? Like, good on you if you got him and you did it. That was my big drawback, taking him at one in the top 10 rounds last year, but it absolutely paid off.
Yeah, I was all in on 2022, so that stung. So to see him come back in 2023 is at least a little justification of the mean. But maybe, it doesn't help you if you don't have him, but at least like process was right, I guess, is the theory. But yeah, the shoulder injuries and an interesting thing for us to think about is, like you said, the Pablo Lopez and some other things, is we were talking about, should we kind of not be as passive on some of these guys' injuries? And then at the same time, is I want to see how these guys do it the year after they all of a sudden got the innings hike. Like, how's that shoulder doing next year thing? Because that's always a concern as well. But that could be a concern with anybody. So that's just trying to
so-called and debated Verducci effect. It's interesting. So we just talked about Blake Snell. They're going right next to each other. 2024 ADPs right around 60.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
That's an interesting decision.
Snell hasn't had the injury history. That's the thing. Like, that's the conundrum, I think. But I think Freddie's a better pitcher, which is, yeah, we're not going to talk about that right now. That'll be a podcast for later on in January.
That's tricky.
That's very tricky. I don't want to make that decision right now. So let's talk about Lucas Giolito. 41st pitcher off the board, finished 73rd, 4.88 ERA, 1.31 WHIP, 204 Ks, which is great. He got you the 200 mark. Pitched 184 innings. He was one of those guys that was frustrating in his all get up, because he'd have like a stretch where you're like, yeah, okay, this isn't bad. This will work. And then he'd have other stretches, and you'd just be like, what are we doing right now? And it ended horrifically in LA and Cleveland. So what's your thoughts on Lucas Giolito?
Yeah, just the way it ended was like, I did not expect this, like, given the injury, or just like not injury, but just like coming off just one of the worst seasons in 2022. You look good to start, and then I don't know what happened in the second half. Like, the whiffs held firm, the velocity held firm, but just could not throw a strike. 12% walk rate in the second half. That's not gonna do it.
Yep, not good at all. There's rumors he might be heading to the Dodgers, which is where he always wanted to go. Many thought he was going to get traded there to begin with. Did not quite happen. We'll see where that all plays out. Let's go to Mr. Jesus Lizard. Jesus Luzardo was the 41st pitcher off the board, or 42nd. Finished 27th at the position, though. 3.58 ERA, 1.21 WHIP, 208 strikeouts. So that was a 4-pitcher stretch of 197 or more. 5 out of the last 6 with 190 or more. Kind of a positive, even though some of the other effects might not have been as great, but definitely a spot to get some strikeouts if you needed them here in this second group of pitching. So Luzardo was a big one, because people were hoping the way he kind of finished 2022 on a high note that this would be a guy we could see in 2023. He took a big innings bump from 100 to 178 last year, and it didn't seem to crush him a ton, which was really good to see. So, what are your thoughts on Jesus Luzardo?
Yeah, it's interesting when I do see that bump in innings. That's when I really start to look at that first second half split to see how did once Luzardo was in uncharted territory, how did he perform? His second half skills were just fine. Luzardo's got two secondary pitches that are really, really good in his slider, which is a 23% swinging strike. I think your league average on that is like 15-ish. And a really good changeup that not only misses bats, but also gets ground balls. So he can get ground balls when he needs to. The four-seamer took a big step forward for Luzardo this year as well. So he's got three pitches that are all well above average. And now that he kind of put that final piece of the puzzle together to go 180, 179, whatever, basically did not miss a start. I think it's all systems go. Very, very optimistic and bright forecaster box on Luzardo as well. I don't remember the exact wording we put on him, but it was positive.
Makes sense considering the high expectations, and he's kind of done it for 2 seasons, basically. I know the innings weren't there 2 years ago. It's interesting to see him going right behind Bobby Miller. Like, I think Jesus Luzardo is a much better pitcher than Bobby Miller. But we'll see. We'll see where that one goes. A lot of pitchers we're seeing on this show, even when we talk about late round performers, all going around Mr. Jesus Luzardo. It's all kind of a pocket of big standouts in 2023. A couple injured guys here. Chris Sale, 43rd pitcher off the board, finished 74th, 4.30 ERA. 1.13 whip was nice, 125 Ks. I did it in a little over 100 innings pitched, 102 innings. Off, like, he started the year obviously on the IL, kind of battled injuries throughout. I believe he finished with a few outings to end the season, but nothing crazy. He's a tough one for me to evaluate. I'll say that much.
Yeah, he's tough just because, like, I don't know. It's just always something. Like in 2022 is all this weird stuff. 2023 is actually like a normal injury, shoulder injury for Sale. I'm not saying that's a good thing. Obviously, shoulders are terrible. The skills are just fine. I mean, it's just trying to predict how many innings he's going to throw. Finished strong. Let's see, had a 25-6 strikeout to walk ratio in August, 29-8 in September, over 9 starts total. Like, I don't know. I'm probably not taking him just because of the volume and now the age. I mean, he will be 35 next year, so that plays a factor as well. But I don't know. The prime Sale is still lurking somewhere in there. The skills are still there.
Yeah, that's why I always get tempted seeing him on draft rooms going. He's one of those guys, like I used to say with Verlander a couple of years ago when he won the Cy Young, and I'm not saying Chris Sale's going to win the Cy Young, but he's at an age where these teams that are rostering him have no desire to worry about his innings. Like, as long as he can pitch, he's pitching basically. And that's one of those things that, we talk about these other pitchers, how many innings will they go? Sale will go as long as his arm's working. And that's like as simple as it goes. It's that's caveman math for you. But that's pretty much the reality of the situation.
I mean, it wouldn't be crazy if he won a Cy Young. If he
just
those 190 innings, and
he showed at times, like especially when he was kind of healthy when he first came off the IL, he looked real good for like 5 innings, and like he wasn't going deep into games yet, which made sense. But he looked good, like he could maybe find it again. We'll see.
Yeah.
Dustin May, 44th pitcher off the board, finished 110, which is actually kind of surprising. The ratios help: 2.63 ERA, 0.94 WHIP, 34 strikeouts in 48 innings pitched, the second most of his career, by the way. But yeah, this is just a dude. He's supposed to hopefully come back middle of next season. Just can't stay healthy. Can't put innings out there. It's tough.
Yeah, like hasn't thrown 60 innings in a major league season yet, and the strikeouts. So yeah, you see 34 strikeouts on the board. You're like, maybe he got hurt after like 4 starts, and that was it. Dude made 9 starts at 34 strikeouts.
Yep.
Swinging strike rate had to have been, I don't have it in front of me, it was 6.7%. Like that has to be that's like him or like Cal Quantrill are probably fighting for the lowest whiff rate in the majors. Just a bizarre season from Dustin May, and like, I don't know, just so much uncertainty with the health. Like, I don't know. Love to see him get right, but hasn't been yet.
Nope, hasn't been right, and I'm not holding my breath anytime soon, unfortunately. The next guy is a very interesting case here, and that is Chris Bassitt. 45th pitcher off the board, finished 13th at the position. This is a big one if you waited on pitching. 3.6 ERA, 1.18 whip, 186 strikeouts, 200 innings pitched after throwing 181 with the Mets. This is his third team in 3 seasons, but he has been very, very good. And what's crazy is he doesn't really get the love he deserves, but in every season but one, he's been 2, 4, 6, 8, like 9 seasons or so. Every season but one a sub-4 ERA, and most of them are lower 3s ERAs. The dude's been very, very good since coming up in the bigs, and I don't know why he does not get the love he deserves.
Because he's just kind of like
boring,
blah. He's just boring.
It's my kind of guy.
But like this is a hell of a good boring. I did not realize Chris Bassitt was the 13th best starting pitcher in fantasy last year.
Boring.
16 wins helps. 16 wins helps. And as a Kevin Gossman, what's that?
So do the ratios and the strikeouts. Like he put it all together.
Yeah. I mean, the ratios were okay. 360, 118. I don't know. 16 wins and 186 strikeouts that's doing a lot. That's pretty damn good. On the same rotation as Gossman, Bassitt got 4 more wins with the ERA. It's half a run higher. This is just me being bitter.
I can tell. I was going to let you go. I was giving you the floor.
I mean, he was fine too, but I just had to throw that one in there. Imagine Gossman with like 16, 18 wins.
He'd probably win the Cy Young.
Damn it.
All right, this next pocket here, if Ryan, you want to take a water break, I understand. Ryan's Rays are coming up here.
Oh, God. Yeah, they're right next to each other, aren't they?
These 2 of the next 3 we'll talk about here.
All right, man, I'm out.
That's what I said.
Get some more pictures off my phone again.
You want to go walk or something. It's all up to you. The first one, 46th pitcher off the board, finished 123, and this is Jeffrey Springs. He had a .56 ERA, .5 whip, and 24 strikeouts. Yes, 24 strikeouts because he only pitched 16 innings. And it was the filthy 16 innings. That's for sure. Like, amazing stuff. I got nothing really else because he's going to be out for most of 2024 too.
Gotcha. Yeah, I got no. So one interesting story, I guess. Jeffrey Springs. We Derek Van Riper and I also took Springs in the XFL, either at the auction or draft. And I remember the morning he got hurt, Derek texted me. He was like, "That Springs call is looking pretty good." And literally 2 or 3 hours later, he got whacked. So tough.
Well, at least he's cheap, right?
I guess. I mean, he's not going to pitch, is he?
Not this year, I don't think. No. But it's a keeper league, right? You can keep him for a couple dollars.
No. I think we threw him back. I think 2 years.
Pitchers are expendable in those formats. The next one's fun. Uncle Charlie, the Ageless Wonder, Charlie Morton, 47th pitcher off the board, finished 37th. Just does what he does. Just boring. Like, not what do you say? He's boring. Just steady as it goes. Like, people that listen to my DFS show, they probably hate me, but every time I talk about him when he's on a slate, I'm like, okay, 5 to 6 innings pitched, probably 3 to 4 runs. He's going to get you over a K per inning. This is what Charlie Morton's going to do. This is who he is. Every once in a while, he get blown up. Every once in a while, he throws like 9 shutout. That's just what Charlie Morton does. But you can pencil in the rough amounts. 3.64 ERA would say that for you, to go with a 1.43 whip because of the walk issues he has, and 183 strikeouts. The strikeouts, like I talked about, because it's 183 Ks and 163 innings pitched. The dude's been really good, really, really good, really consistent. He's going to be 40 this upcoming year, so we don't know if he's going to pitch yet. But every year we wait for Father Time to show up, and every year Charlie Morton keeps pounding away. So another pretty quality season if you took him in fan. The whip could hurt, but the rest of it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and especially on the Braves, he got what? How many wins did he get? 14 wins.
14 and 12. He got 26 decisions in 30 starts. That's tough to do in baseball these days.
That's actually hard to lose 12 games on the Braves. I don't know how you do that.
Is that the days they decided to sit Acuna and other guys? Like, okay, you get the B squad today. Here you go.
Yeah, this guy's never sat there. That's tough. I'd like to kind of deep dive some of his losses. I don't know how the hell that happens. Yeah, I mean, is he going to pitch next year?
It's up in the air.
I would think so, but
I think he does. I think what the rumors are, it's either he wants to go back to Atlanta again or he's going to retire. Because the reason he sticks in Atlanta, he's close to home. It's kind of all part of his deal.
I mean, the strikeouts are part of the package. If he stays with Atlanta, obviously the win potential's excellent. The walk rate's bad though, like you mentioned, Bubba, and it got real bad in the second half. 14% walk rate in the second half. Velocity held firm and the whiffs held firm though, so I don't think he broke down. It's probably just a spell of wildness. It happens. I'd be fine. Like literally the last 3-4 years, we could have said this about Charlie Morton's. You're gonna get the innings, you're gonna get the strikeouts. Is he gonna start breaking down? He hasn't, and so I don't know, 40, but I'd take a gander.
Eventually, he'll go the way of Wainwright, but until then, I'll keep trusting the old man. It'll be great. Drew Rasmussen, the other Ryan's Ray, 48th pitcher off the board, finished 109, 2.62 ERA, 105 WHIP, 47 Ks in 44 and a 2/3 innings. See you in 2025.
R.I.P.
Yep, that's the best way to put it. Now, the man that we've mentioned a lot on last show and this show, we get to finally talk about him, is Pablo Lopez. He had an ADP of 163. 49th off the board, finished 17th. Same ADP as Drew Rasmussen. So, like, I haven't been focusing as much on that, but there's been pockets on this show. If you watch the charts, very similar situations here. And Pablo, 3.66 ERA, 1.15 WHIP, 234 strikeouts, third best in baseball, tied with Blake Snell, only behind Kevin Gausman and Spencer Strider. That is impressive from Pablo Lopez. And he pitched 194 innings, so back-to-back years of at least 180 innings pitched. What do you got on Pablo Lopez, who was nothing short of outstanding?
I mean, the reason why the price was cheap was just the injuries. I mean, I guess he threw 180 innings in 2022, but I don't know, man. Hell of a year. So we mentioned Nick earlier in the show mentioned Joe Ryan's elite fastball. Pablo Lopez's four-seam fastball, the swinging strike on it, went from 11%, which is already pretty good in 2022, up to the exact same number as Joe Ryan, 17%. What does Minnesota know about four-seam fastballs that they taught or worked with Lopez and Joe Ryan on in 2023? Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. And that's really what drove, like, Lopez has always had decent secondaries, like a pretty good changeup, pretty good curveball. But you throw a four-seamer that misses that many bats and that picked up 1.5 miles fastball velocity was really the key for all of this happening. And, of course, the 194 innings helps a lot. He only had 11 wins. He kind of got screwed. Yeah. Like, this could have been better. But just a hell of a year.
Twins factor for you. Twins factor.
Yeah. That's the downside, I guess, of being on the Twins.
It's like Nick mentioned. I know they did a lot of it last year, and we've seen them doing it this year. A lot of these Twins guys go to drive line, and I know people hate hearing that stuff, but it's been proven that it works a lot more than it doesn't with these hitters and pitchers. So we'll see if it continues. But like you said, it's a team philosophy. I know a lot of these teams are hiring guys from driveline and other organizations to come in there. And it's like, you're our guy. So maybe he literally had more time to focus on just them, and it was a different animal. So there's still a lot to those kind of situations. I'm speculating. So if someone tells me I'm wrong, you're probably right that I am wrong, but I'm just speculating on that one. Now another guy that I love, and I already drafted him in my most recent draft. That is Jordan Jomo Montgomery.
Ah, you're back in.
Oh, I never left.
You never left.
I never left. What do you mean back in? I never left. I've been riding this train for a couple years now, and it's getting a little more crowded. Let's put it that way. Not just because of me, but it's getting crowded. He 50th pitcher off the board, finished 32nd at the position, which is pretty darn good at ADP of 164, and it's because of the ratios: 3.20 ERA, 1.19 WHIP, and 166 Ks. He's never been a big strikeout guy. That's always been the complaint from many people, but 188 innings, it's basically 180 in 2 straight years. Been super, super effective. Going to be a free agent in 2024. Just won a World Series. The dude, like I said, he's a ratio machine. And if he could ever just maybe get an uptick in strikeouts, he'd be a filthy pitcher. But I'll take what I can get at his ADP. So love me some Jomo.
Kind of like, what's the difference between Jomo and Chris Bassitt?
Bassitt
just kind of
strikes out more guys. No, maybe not. 186 Ks.
a few more Ks for Bassitt this
But
past year.
more innings too, but yeah, not a lot different. You're right.
They seem like the same type of guy. Just decent ratios, a lot of volume. Jordan Montgomery, I think the big reason why he finished only, I mean, it was still a great year, only 32nd, and Bassitt finished 13th.
Wins.
Jordan Montgomery had a losing record
Yep.
on Texas with a 3.20 ERA.
Half the season with Texas.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What was his second half? 4-4 with Texas.
Not great, but
that's in this dude's DNA, man. Remember
the
when
Yankees
he was on the
screwed
freaking
him.
Yankees?
I
God.
was screaming from the rooftops. It was like 5 innings or 4 innings. Gotta yank him. I'm like, dude.
Boone would not let him go a third time.
He immediately traded him to St. Louis, and he's like throwing complete games. I'll never forget that. Like the first two starts, it's beautiful. It was just a big middle finger.
Yeah, that post-trade Jomo, that run that he went on was like beautiful. Was that last year or was that 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago because they traded him to St. Louis for Harrison Bader, who didn't end up playing until like the postseason, and that wasn't a long postseason. And then this past year, he got traded midseason to the Rangers.
Yeah.
And that's how he got the World Series.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to get like a Jomo wall of jerseys. He's just a traveling soldier of like a great pitcher that just keeps getting moved around. He's the one. I even said it at FPAS. I want the Giants to sign him, but he's not even rumored to be with the Giants right now. He would be, to me, phenomenal in that ballpark. But I digress.
There's a lot of letters in the name Jordan Montgomery. None of them are W.
Well, if you flip the M upside down, Montgomery.
If he gets 20 wins next year, we're calling him Jordan Montgomery.
Oh, I'm waiting to buy a jersey. I'll buy a jersey if he's 20 wins. Don't you worry. It'll happen. All right. Brady Singer, 51st pitcher off the board, 144. And this was a tale of a couple seasons, is what I'm going to call it, because there were signs of life of being just so good. And then signs of life of just what is going on out there. And it was like kind of that middle of the season. I think he went back to the minors even for a bit. Pitch mix change, came back up, looked really good. And then boom, went to dynamite. But there was rumors of a blitzer / innings, like he got tired type thing. A lot of the reports towards the end of the season with Brady Singer, if you read beat writers talking to him and stuff, leaves me still optimistic for 2024. But it was a brutal finish for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, he's never missed bats. Like, so the strikeout floor, the strikeout ceiling is extremely low. And so he relies so much on like called strikes. Brady Singer was always at the top of these leaderboards for like CSW, despite not getting any whiffs. You got so many called strikes in that command. If that command is off even at all, you get stuff. And maybe it was because of the blister. Maybe next year he's fine and he comes back. But like, I just don't like taking your Kyle Hendricks types where you're drafting a low strikeout ceiling. You're on a team with the Royals where, I don't know, the lineup was okay in the second half, but like, what's your win ceiling there? And you're just really banking on like really good ratios. And I don't know. I like to at least try to get someone on a better team or someone that misses more bats. But
so you're out on Singer, but I want to ask you this much because you're talking about guys that require called strikes and everything. Brady Singer has an ADP of 585.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Shane Bieber has an ADP of 163. Explain the difference.
I mean, Bieber, if Bieber's healthy, he's been a lot better than Brady Singer. A lot better. I would not take Bieber where he's going, but I mean that's why. Okay. I don't know. Like, would you did draft Singer in our DC?
585? Heck yeah.
But like, he does more damage. Like, I'd rather take, I don't know, Matt Brash. Brash probably going a lot earlier.
I've been taking
probably
Brash.
A terrible example.
Well, just like
look who's going. So
look who's going around him. Look
Kyle Hendricks.
Singer. Yeah, Hendricks right next to him. Yeah, but it's like Hendricks, Gavin Stone, who was horrible, Javier Assad, who wasn't bad but same pitch to contact guy, Tanner Houck, if you want to take a chance, Taiwan Walker, Patrick Sandoval.
There's Yuki Matsui. I don't even know who that is. I take him over Brady Singer.
We're gonna have some Brady Singer bets on our SP preview show. I can already feel it now. It's coming.
You're
Tony
in.
Gons.
You're in.
Oh
You're
yeah,
back in.
Tony Gonsolin, 52nd pitcher off the board, 106 ADP. We knew regression was coming. It came in a gigantic dump truck all over him. What?
Yeah, and I think came quickly. I think he started pretty hot, if I recall. Yeah, he had a 1.95 ERA through May. To go back to that Blake Snell example, marathon, not a sprint. 1.95 ERA in May, and then Gonsolin in June, 5.82. July, 6.39 ERA, and August, 7.97 ERA. Awful skills. Still very surprising to see how it unraveled.
Kodai Senga, 53rd pitcher off the board, finished 19th. An amazing debut for Kodai Senga. 2.98 ERA, 1.22 WHIP, 202 Ks in 166 innings. The walks was the reason he probably didn't finish even higher, and those walks got better as the season went on. Let me preface that. It was really bad early. He got even better as the year went on, month by month. The dude was looking like an ace, and I'm really curious to see what round 2 looks like with him, but an amazing debut.
Yeah, really good debut, and I think the strikeout floor with Senga is really strong. And again, that's why with a 2.98 ERA, I don't really see that happening again. That's really hard to do, but especially with the walk rate that Senga has. But like you said, the walk rate improved in the second half. Still wasn't good, but it was passable. The strikeout minus walk in the second half for Senga with all those strikeouts was 21%. And that's really good. If he can sustain that over a full season, this has plenty of staying power. So one thing that I do like to look at with the walk rate is the underlying ball percentage to validate what that was. For Senga was a 39% ball rate. Your league average is 36%. So he was not throwing strikes either. So I don't think he's just suddenly going to have a good walk rate. There's nothing that really screams that. But again, even if he has a below average walk rate, but passable with all those Ks, he can still be fine.
Most definitely. Grayson Rodriguez, 54th off the board, finished 94th at the position, but this is not the Grayson Rodriguez we need to talk about. His season totals were 4.35 ERA, 1.34 WHIP, 129 Ks and 122 innings. But let's talk about the second half. Grayson Rodriguez that came back after he went demoted to the minors, 2.58 ERA. Looked absolutely outstanding. Strikeouts were there in plenty. 73 Ks and 76 innings pitched. That's the guy we're looking for in 2024.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is a prime example of when you're starting your 2024 prep. I think this is one where you want to override whatever. If you're using projections, I think your typical projection system is going to take into account too much of that first half with Grayson Rodriguez. When I think if you take what he did in context, this is a guy who's one of the best pitching prospects in baseball, did come back in that second half with better skills, with more whiffs, and with a full, over a mile an hour uptick on the fastball. I think you not prorate the second half over a full season, but that wouldn't be crazy. And the second half was a 2.58 ERA, 110 WHIP, and a 24% K rate.
I ignore the first half at his age. At his age, it might sound silly to some that are so hardcore into everything matters. It doesn't matter with him. It's just that's my 2 cents.
And just starting pitchers can change so much with if you've got a guy with a 96 go to 97 mile an hour fastball, that matters a lot. Uptick in velocity like that. Yes, he has to hold it for a full season, but I'm with you, man. I think your typical projection system that weighs that first half, I think, is going to be pretty bearish on Grayson Rodriguez. And I think we should kind of change those to make it look better because he looked really good in the second half.
And I'd say most people drafting have ignored it as well. The ADP is 72, right behind Logan Webb, right before.
Is it really?
Senga. Yeah, it's behind Webb and before Senga. So people are on the same page as us on this one.
Yeah.
John Gray, 66th finishing position, 55th off the board, 4.12 ERA, 1.29 WHIP, 142 Ks. Great start to the year. It just blew up and went horribly south in the second half, and it's puzzling for me. All thing he had a bunch of minor injuries like blisters and everything, kept screwing him up. But as a whole, the second half was not strong and ended up in the bullpen for the postseason.
Yeah, not great. I don't have too much to add. The whiffs held pretty strong, so maybe the strikeout rate comes back a little bit. But I don't know. He's just never, for John Gray, like I always ask, like, what could he do over a full season? Injuries have always been a thing. But like his ERA the last 3 seasons, 4.59, 3.96, 4.12. The underlying like indicators are close to that as well. Just recently, the health has kind of been there, but skills haven't. So it just never really clicked for him. And I feel like I'm talking about him like he's old, but I think he's 31 next year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's not
finally out of Coors after a couple years out of Coors now. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Reed Detmers was 56th pitcher off the board, finished 107th, 4.48 ERA, 1.35 WHIP, 168 Ks. Phenomenal final month of the season. The rest of the year was a roller coaster of emotions, and that is the Reed Detmers experience in a nutshell. And trust me, when I look at him in draft rooms, I have a tough time clicking draft button just knowing the roller coaster that I will be on. But the strikeout stuff when he's on is awesome.
It is, but yeah, the second half was really bad. And I know I keep kind of harping on first half, second half splits with these pitchers, but I think it's definitely something to look at when the velocity is down over. This is kind of the anti-Grayson Rodriguez. The velocity was down over a full tick. The whiffs pretty much completely went away in the second half, down from 14% in the first half to 10.5% in the second half. And that's why the Ks pretty much disappeared. And so I wonder with Reed Detmers, like this was his first time throwing 130 innings in a major league season. Like, did it just wear down early? So I worry about Reed Detmers over a full year next year, just from what we saw down the stretch from him.
Most definitely. Patrick Sandoval, there was high expectations for Sandoval in 2023. That did not happen. Finished 118th at the position, 4.11 ERA, 1.51 WHIP. He's always had a walk issue. Had it once again, if not worse than previous seasons last year. And the ball left the yard a lot more often. So just a horrible season.
Yeah, this is like the Angels rotation version of the podcast, and all very negative. To me, it's amazing that Major League Baseball's pace of play improved in 2023, despite Patrick Sandoval throwing 145 innings. Like, dude is just every single time I'd look at his box score, like 4 1/3, 5 walks, like 91 pitches, and he's out. Like that's the Patrick Sandoval experience. He was good a couple of years ago, or good in 2022, but like the walk rate is just insurmountable, and the strikeouts are on a pretty bad trend from 26% 2 years ago to 24 and then 20 last season. It's not great.
Yep, not good at all.
He's also really cheap though next year. He is.
Yeah. I told you he's getting drafted right next to Brady Singer.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, so Sandoval or Singer?
I'll take Singer.
You're taking Singer.
Yeah. I'll definitely take Singer.
It sounds like a bet, but I'm not gonna hang my hat on Patrick Sandoval.
That's a bold strategy.
I'm not doing that. We'll think of something else.
Like I'd almost be. We'll think about it later. I won't throw it out there yet. Sonny Gray, 58th pitcher off the board with an ADP of 213, finished 24th at the position, one of the better values later on in drafts. 2.79 ERA, 1.15 WHIP, 183 Ks. All great stuff there. Another Twins pitcher with only 8 wins, but that's because he didn't go deep into games that often. That was the thing with Sonny Gray. But the ratio is once again a success, which landed him a big contract in St. Louis.
Yep. Kudos. And yeah, the big thing was the innings. I mean, 184 innings after going 135, 119 the last couple of years. So that was why I'm looking at. So Sonny Gray, as opposed to Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez's fastball revolution, for Sonny Gray, it was the sweeper.
Yep. Developed
through the sweeper. Yep. Twice as often in 2023. And the swinging strike on it went from 15%, which is like league average for a sweeper, up to 23%. So the sweeper was an absolute weapon, and he threw it 20% of the time. So Just pitch mix changes like that you can kind of detect early on. Earlier, you can pick up on that stuff. Can really lead you to good places.
And that's one of the things that's been well documented. Is it could be still the Twins' philosophy, just wasn't fastballs. Is Sonny talked about back in the Yankees, they wouldn't let him use a slider the way he wanted to, and all that kind of stuff. Goes to Minnesota, and here's this sweeper thing. It's like they tapped into what he is good at doing. Maybe Ryan and Pablo better with the fastball, Sonny better with like a sleeper slider situation, and they're just locating it and taking the goods and enhancing them, which is an angle to go with.
Absolutely. It's interesting that all these Twins breakouts, that there were pitch mix changes involved and in big ways.
Andrew Heaney finished 67th the position. We know who Heaney is. Lots of home runs, occasional strikeouts, end of the season in the bullpen.
Yeah, pretty much par for the course.
And then Edward Cabrera finished 102nd at the position. Injury riddled at times, lots of walks as well.
Yep. 144 whip. It's not going to be not going to help, especially when you only get 118 Ks.
Any final thoughts on this top 60? I had a couple notes written down here before we go to some outliers here, because it is an interesting position. Like there's pockets of ADP not maybe as obvious as the top 30 per se, but they're definitely here.
It was pretty boomer bust. Like almost a third of them, 9 out of 30 finished in the top 30. So I don't want to call that breakouts, but that's something you would take all day in this range. But then you had 12 of them finish outside the top 100, either due to injury or, there were a lot of these guys that we talked about that were just straight up bad or didn't pitch much. And so very much hit or miss with this group.
Yep, most definitely. Let's talk about some of the outliers, though. And this is where it gets fun. Zach Eflin, he had an ADP of 297, finished 5th at the position. 5th. I did not stutter, folks. The 5th best pitcher in fantasy was Zach Eflin. 177 innings pitched, 3.50 ERA. Dude had a 23% K to walk, the best of his career. I know there was a bunch of high expectations, I guess, when he got he signed with the Rays, but I don't know if they could have been this high, Ryan.
Yeah, this should have been the Ryan Ray instead of either Robbie Ray or Springs or Rasmussen. 3% walk rate for Zach Eflin. Like that is, and a 31% ball rate. Like the dude throws strikes, he pounds the zone. That's why the whip is just so good with the guy. And then finally got the innings last year, 177 innings. Were pretty much matched. Well, no, he had 75 innings the year before. So good on the Rays. Good signing.
Justin Steele, big fan here, being told so many times he couldn't produce with 2 pitches, but he got it done. Finished 9th at the position, ADP of 285, managed 173 innings pitched. That was quite the jump, especially after 2022 when they shut him down at the end of the year to rest him because of innings limits. He got the job done, 117 whip. Pretty good stuff for me when it looks at Justin Steele.
Yep, it was all fastball slider, 97% of the time. Kind of fell apart in September.
The last couple starts.
Yeah, not even September. Yeah,
it was just like the last 2 starts or so, 2 or 3 starts.
Yeah, at Arizona, Pittsburgh, and then at Atlanta, he gave up 15 earned runs. But we should be celebrating what Justin Steele did. He was one of a Bloom board of First Pitch Arizona 2022. He was another strikeout minus walk gainer from first half to second half the year before, and then obviously did what he did in 2023.
Most definitely. Kyle Bradish, this is a fun one that I'm still kind of wrapping my head around for drafts this year. He finished 10th at the position with an ADP of 340. This was a big one. So there's 3 past 300. That was my bad. 340 for Kyle Bradish. Finished with a 2.83 ERA through 168 and 2/3 innings pitched. And one of the biggest takeaways was the second half, just completely tore it up in the second half. And it was due to the fastball for the most. The velo changed, but pitch mix as a whole changed. So what do you got on Kyle Bradish? Because I saw MLB Dream, who is a big Orioles guy and a smart fantasy player, he was tweeting a lot about him today, actually, which was funny, thinking we're going to talk about him tonight.
I have not seen that. I'll have to check that out. Bradish switched up his fastballs. So he not ditched his 4-seamer, but threw it a lot less and threw more sinkers. And that's why you have a big jump in ground ball rate, especially in the second half for Bradish, 53% ground ball rate. And then you tack on a 20%, strikeout minus walk. That combination of strikeouts, not many walks and ground balls is like starting pitcher gold. And anytime you see a step forward like this, look at the pitch mix. If there's a change in pitch mix, that's more likely, in my opinion, to validate those gains going forward to next year. And Bradish certainly passed those tests. I would imagine he's pretty expensive. 100.
Yeah, he's not cheap compared to the past. A couple more here. Merrill Kelly finished 21st at the position, ADP of 247. He's just a boring guy. Kind of feels like a Bassitt and others at times, but gets the better strikeout rates potentially. 177 innings, 3.29 ERA. He had a 1.19 WHIP. Pretty solid stuff overall, and he does it more often than not, surprisingly.
That's almost like a trend of tonight's show, is these boring innings eaters. Not innings eater as a negative connotation, but these guys eat innings like that taste like the steaks you make.
I like
in
it.
Your town.
My kind of guys.
Like imagine taking in a DC last year, you want to get volume or something, taking Bassitt, Montgomery, and Kelly. Like that was huge. Certainly on the table. You just got so many innings of ratios and wins.
Yep. So. Erod, Eduardo Rodriguez, 25th at the position, 325 ADP through 152 innings, 3.3 ERA. WHIP is always an issue, but he only has a 1.15 WHIP this year, which was big for him. I don't know if he can sustain that because that's not his career norm, but a really great season.
Great season, and highlight of the year, in your opinion, I'm speaking for you at this point, was the trade rejection to LA.
Well, and the funniest part now is LA is one of the teams he wants to assign with.
I know. That's what I was going to say. Like, did you see that?
But it's I respect his thing. He did it for his family. Like he's already talked about it. Like I want to sign with him. I have no problem with the Dodgers. I didn't want to uproot my kids again in the middle of the season and stuff. Like I respect that. Like that's where we forget that there's more to the business of baseball. Like there's life outside of baseball. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. We're going where my kids can still we're still a family. I'm like, I respect that. It's pretty good stuff. I would have been more fun if he still would have hated the Dodgers, but I respect what he did. Last but not least, Michael Wacha, 26th at the position, ADP of 386. Just nice to mention Michael Wacha because every time you thought the wheels would come off the bus, they didn't. 134 innings, 3.22 ERA, 1.16 WHIP. The dude was like the most boring guy in the world, but literally 5 or 6 innings, no strikeouts. Strikeouts were not a thing for Michael Wacha, but everything else was pretty solid.
Yeah, and had 14 wins in 24 starts.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
He was a quality start machine, it felt like at times. Like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, we could have said this before about Michael Wacha. He's done this before, but yeah, the skills nowhere near support this, but he's been able to do it. And he's another one. He seems like he's like 38, 39, only 32.
Yeah, only 32. It does feel like he's like Wainwright-esque, and he's not.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Going 263 right before Mason Miller, who's pretty much just the anti-Michael Wacha.
We just got to see where Wacha signs. Like as weird as this sounds, he'd be a good Giant. He'd be cheap. He'd do what you look like. He would actually fit that system really well. The system that annoys me on a nightly basis. But yes, he would fit it very well. All right, I'm going to pull the Bloom board back up for our first listener question here because it brings up from BP at futures_bet. I know this is way too early and odds aren't out yet, but give me a Cy Young Award prediction or two from the pitchers you discussed on this pod. I think Senga is probably a pretty fun one. Peralta. But let's go outside the box, Ryan. Anybody stand out to you as a Cy Young guy on this list?
It's funny. We actually mentioned Sale, saying we wouldn't be surprised by Cy Young. And again, that sounds crazy, but Blake Snell won the Cy Young at an ADP of 114 last year. So like, it's not that crazy. I'd go Nick Lodolo. I'll go Nick Lodolo as someone who could win the Cy out of this group. For the reasons I won't repeat, we mentioned all earlier, but I really like him. I just hate the park, but I like him.
Yeah. I'll go with Grayson Rodriguez. If the innings can be there, if we hold to our guns that we just throw the first half out the window and we get that second half dude, I'm going to go Grayson Rodriguez.
I'll go honorable mention Brady Singer. No, I'm just kidding.
I was waiting for some. Like I would love to say Jomo. He's never going to strike out a guy who's enough to do it, but he's a Cy Young winner in my heart, so it's okay.
That's what matters, really.
Yeah, it's all it really does matter. And then Taylor_Bauer 11 asks, I just want to hear your thoughts on Chris Sanchez, Javier Assad, JP Sears, and Griffin Canning. Don't care when it comes. I'll listen to all of them.
Oh, man.
Deep dive in here. It's a lot of late round pitch to contact guys. Sears had some strikeout upside. Chris Sanchez, if it's the Phillies guy we're talking about there, Chris Sanchez, he finished well. But what are your thoughts? You pulled stuff up.
I mean, I would say out of all those guys, Sanchez is the one I'm like by far most interested in.
I think there's a ceiling there.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a ceiling there. 3.44 ERA, 105 WHIP from Sanchez. Great walk rate. Great ground ball rate, 57% ground ball rate, and he missed bats, 12% swing strike rate. Like that is all of the components that you want in a potential breakout pitcher. And I think we'll see like what happens with the Phillies this offseason, but would think he's pretty safe in the role through 80 innings in the second half last year. So like held up pretty well late into the season. Christopher Sanchez out in that group, I think is really good. JP Sears is one I had a lot of. Just like he was fine. It's just pitching in that park helps the ratios, but like there's just no win potential. So that made him kind of tough. But I think he's probably safe. Assad, I feel like I don't know. I feel like Assad has a pretty low floor, but I could be wrong. I don't know too much.
I think Assad's got a good floor, no ceiling. Okay. I had a lot of Assad last year, even in DCs, as like a late dart, and he pitched well in September, but the strikeouts were always a question. Pitched a lot of contact at times and just kind of skated around situations. Dane Dunning's a guy we talked about like on recap shows when the season ended. Like I love him in DCs. You talk about boring pitchers. Dane Dunning's that dude. Decent ratios, eats up a lot of innings. Strikeouts might not be great, but good team behind him. Good team with the Rangers. But I'm with you. Like if I had to rank them per se, it'd be Sanchez, Sears, Canning, Assad for me. But I've had pieces of all of them at points last year. So I can't.
I go Sanchez. I go Canning ahead of Sears.
That's probably fair.
And then Assad last. Assad.
We said Canning, not Dunning. Sorry, I was thinking Dane Dunning. Canning's a ceiling boomer bust guy.
Yeah,
that's my bad.
But you want to take where he's going. I mean, that's the kind of thing you want to do.
Yeah. Sanchez, Canning, Sears, Assad. I'm with you on that. That's right. I was thinking Dane Dunning for some reason. But Griffin Canning, good finish of the season too. So that's a plus.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Bloomfield, another episode in the books. Any final thoughts on the starting pitching position?
I don't know. Just more questions than answers. I said that on the last show, but just so hard to nail these guys. But doing so or not doing so is the difference in your league. So hope to have more of those Justin Steeles, Zach Eflins than Lance Lynn's and Brady Singers next year.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I'm interested to see what our Brady Singer bet's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be fun because right now I'd be very bold. So I'm going to wait and see what January looks like before I make those claims. But I am a believer that he's better than the discussion we had. Let's put it that way. We'll be back with you guys on Tuesday evening to recap the relief pitching position, which would be mighty fun considering not as much turnover as years past. So it'll be really interesting to see how that played out in the ADP market. But until then, you can check out Ryan on Twitter at RyanBHQ, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod. I'm at BD Entrick. This is Bubba and the Bloom, episode 87. Catch y'all next time.